Hi. Well, welcome back to Coach B's studio. Today, I would like to talk to you about new ways of thinking, even thinking about thinking, and how to break free from what many of us call overthinking. I received a message the other day from a client who said something like this: I have a tendency to overthink what people tell me. And they said, I'm also curious to explore new ways of thinking. Now, that really stuck with me. I have a lot of clients who talk to me about that they feel like they're overthinking. And so I got to thinking that I ought to do a presentation. And assuming that we all have our own definition of what overthinking is, I don't think it's overthinking. You probably have heard me say that. I think it's bad thinking. And I want to, before I launch into this, help you see if we can agree on about 8 different types of thinking and how we're going to just look at one or two today. So, first of all, there's analytical thinking, if you would. And that's where we break down complex problems logically. Okay? Then there's creative thinking, which is generating new ideas, thinking outside the box, what we typically call brainstorming. Then there's reflective thinking. That's where we examine the past experiences to learn and grow. Learn and grow. That's the one that I will often focus on with my clients. And then mindful thinking. That's where we define that as staying present. Well, isn't that a wonderful notice? That's where we stay present, reducing overthinking and judgment. And then there's positive thinking. That's where we focus on strengths, opportunities, and solutions rather than the problem. I bet that's something that we can ought to implement more in our work. Here's one that I really like: systems thinking. That's where we attempt to understand how different factors interact in complex systems. That's where we look for patterns, cause and effect. And then there's this kind of thinking, the one that I'll often assess for you. It's called the growth mindset. It's just a general way of approaching things open, and it's where we believe that abilities and intelligence can be developed. It's learning from failures. There's probably a lot of other ways we could call that. Finally, the metacognitive thinking. That's thinking about how you think. So today in this session, let's just focus back on breaking free of what we think of when we talk about overthinking. And maybe that's where you replay a conversation over and over in our heads, analyzing the words that we remember and wondering what in the world did they mean. And of course, a lot of us do that. Overthinking can feel like we've described it like a mental hamster wheel, spinning but not getting anywhere. So we believe, meaning the body of psychologists, of which I'm a therapist and counselor, a little different, but still studying the science of the mind. The good news, you don't have to stay stuck. We understand that there are many ways of thinking. That's the first beginning step. And then that we can shift between them to help us process it more effectively and reduce our stress and gain clarity. So the first thing we want to talk about is the power of perspective shifting. Instead of defaulting to what did they mean by that, try asking what are 3 other ways to interpret this. This simple shift helps train our brain to consider multiple viewpoints instead of assuming the worst. And as many of you have found out either through our work together or through these videos, that we follow patterns. We call them life traps. That's one way to look at them, that are controlling our viewpoint instead of the facts and the moment, more the reality helping us control it, and asking appropriate questions at the time, things like that. The second area is fact versus story thinking. Our brains fill in the gaps, and sometimes we create stories that aren't even based on reality. So try asking yourself, what are the actual facts here? For example, they didn't respond to my message. What story am I telling myself? They must be mad at me. What's a healthier alternative story? Maybe they're just busy. That might help. That's the beginning of the work that we're talking about here. Now, the third area that we could talk about just briefly, systems thinking, the bigger picture. Instead of zooming in on a single moment, zoom out, and maybe you'll ask, how does this fit into the bigger picture? Will this matter in a month or a year? Seeing things from a broader lens can help us detach from unnecessary mental loops. Now, this one in particular reminds me of a phrase that's used in the book, The Courage to be Disliked. And that's where a person does not judge most of the time. When an event happens in their life, like you send an email and they don't respond, or a text and they don't respond, you basically say, oh, is that so? Oh, is that so? It's a powerful phrase that may take you out of the engagement loop into that story creation about it that hurts, and the rumination, and just lets it be what it is. The fourth area, the growth mindset, the what can I learn approach. Rather than worrying about whether we got it right, shift to curiosity. What can I learn from this interaction? How might this experience help me grow? So that what we're believing there is the shift from a judgment mentality to a learning mentality reduces the stress itself and makes challenges feel more like opportunities. Finally, mindful thinking, staying in the present. If overthinking is a problem that you're experiencing, you're aware of it, and it takes you into the past or into the future, come back and anchor yourself in the here and now. Ask, what do I know for sure at this moment? What action, if any, can I take right now? This keeps our mind from wandering into what-if spirals and brings us back to reality. So, thinking is a tool. So is feeling. And many of us overemphasize thinking, and we rely heavily on it, and then we think about our emotions, and we think about thinking, and we ought to consider all of these things and start talking about the different ways of thinking and feeling and experiencing our lives. So, like any tool, you can learn to use it differently. If you're ready to stop overthinking, as you call it, or ruminating, or bad thinking, start looking at these other ways that can help you move forward. So I'll ask you this question. What's one shift that you could make today in how you're thinking? If you want to, drop a comment below. Hashtag mindset, overthinking, Coach B Studio, mental wellness, self-growth, new ways of thinking. In any case, as always, continue to grow, connect, and thrive one story at a time. Thank you.